Well, here we go. It's another episode of JC Unplugged, and I'm very excited about this week's guest. You know him from the TV show Tanked. Maybe you know him from his restaurant, Stallone's. It is Brett Raymer and many other endeavors as well. I'm sure we'll break down all of them. But Brett, man, thank you so much for being here, buddy.
Oh, Matt, thanks for having me, JC. Congratulations on your new show.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations on your restaurant. Let's start there with Stallone's. I remember you told me this concept that you're going to have. You're going to open up this restaurant. I felt like you're working on it for about a year. You open up one spot. How has Stallone's grown? How are things going in the restaurant world for you?
Man, so, I opened the restaurants because somebody told me that the restaurant business is like one of the hardest businesses to get into. And I've always been cooking my whole life, and I always couldn't find that perfect bite of New York food that I grew up with. So I decided to open up my own place, and we opened up the first location on Silverado Ranch in Bermuda. It's actually a little over 3 years now, believe it or not. And we have a second location now inside the Santa Fe Station Casino, which is coming up here on 2 years that we've been there. So usually they say like the 3 year mark is the mark for restaurants, right? The first year, if you make it through, they say is a success. And then they say year number 3 is the next success, and then year 5. So, for someone not being in the industry, I've learned that it's definitely a hard business, but it's enjoyable for sure.
The name Stallone's, where does the name come from?
I figured that, being a celebrity myself, I figured, once people started getting the idea that I own the place, that maybe in the back of their mind that they would think that Stallone was my partner. So the name was available, and I figured, if you must be living in a box if you haven't heard the name Stallone over the last 50 years, right?
Yes.
Everybody, it works. Believe me. If I had $1 for every time someone came in and said, "Hey, this Stallone's on this, Sylvester Stallone on this place," you know. But no, it's a great name. Like I said, everyone knows it. It's kind of like like everyone knows your name. You know what I mean? Like that's the name that everyone knows. So I figured let's roll with it.
It has a great ring. I remember I did the same thing when he told me the name was Stallone's. I'm like, I think of Sylvester Stallone. I'm like, maybe Brett is partner with Brett. Maybe they're just family friends. And then he said, no, it's just a great name. But it also surprises me that that name was not registered. That name was available.
Yeah, I did a little bit of my research. Obviously, Stallone has a restaurant called Balboa's, and he went kind of that route. But also, there was a place in Long Island growing up as a kid that my grandmother used to order food from, called Stallone's Italian Kitchen, and it was way before Stallone's was even back in the day. So there was already a restaurant and already something pending back in New York. When I grew up. And then when we came out to Vegas and we saw that the name was available, we were like, oh man, yeah, it reminds us of grandma, reminds us the name that everybody knows. Why not use it?
Did you ever think of playing off of the whole Tanked franchise and your success in the reality TV show world of using your own name with the restaurant or Tanked Italian something?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because originally, before I was even thinking about Stallone's, which wasn't even a thought, I had this idea about opening up like a bar restaurant called Get Tanked. And, it was basically going to be like a play on, obviously drinking, the aquariums, the whole 9 yards. And then, I don't know, it didn't feel like the Italian, the fit was like the Italian with the fit. You know what I mean? So when we knew we were going with the small Italian, it didn't really have the same ring to Get Tanked as it would have by Stallone. And you know what? I wanted to build Stallone's for the brand that it was, for the food and for what it was. I'm sure I could. Tank has been around for a long time and it still airs all the time. So if I ever wanted to go that route, I felt like it was still, the action was always still there. But I wanted to learn the business. Now that I've been there 3 years, I know the business inside and out. So it makes it a lot easier to go out and start something again if I really did do it.
If you wanted to do a Tanked themed restaurant, do you have the rights to use the name Tanked and the likeness from the show?
Get Tank and Tank, similar, different. I don't know. That would have to be an attorney thing, I guess. But I would always call the network and talk to them and see if there's something that we would have to work out beforehand. I don't like to try to run into headaches.
You have such a great business mind. I think we've been friends now for about 6 years, and I always learn so much about the business world and being an entrepreneur from hanging out with you. We have to talk.
I think it's been longer than that, man. I've been gone from this show for 6 years.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's longer than that, man. We've been friends since I've been on the show because I've come and done interviews. So it's probably got to be. I mean, like I said, I haven't shot another episode since 18.
Which is wild to me. It just seems like last year.
Yeah, 2018, man. It's the last time I shot an actual episode. So we're talking almost 6 years ago.
Well, I feel like our friendship we really became close. It was the summer of 2020, and DJ Ashba was filming a music video, and Channel 8 here assigned me to go cover the DJ Ashba video music shoot. Now, we're still pandemic kind of coming out of lockdown, and there's still restrictions and everything. And we go over to this massive, massive house, and I walk in, and there's Ashba, and it's like a Guns N' Roses style music video, women in bikinis, rock stars everywhere. And you come walking up. I'm like, Brett, what are you doing here? Like, this is my house. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I think that was the day we really connected. We hung out that night, and our friendship really blossomed. But I'll never forget that night because it was such a odd time of, the first 6 months of that year being the pandemic. Things are opening up a little bit. And the first thing I'm assigned to go cover is the filming of a rock video at this massive mansion here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that was awesome. DJ, friend of mine, being on the show, did a couple episodes with us. I was looking for a place, and I owed him a favor. So yeah, we shot it at my house, and that was a great time. It was a great music video, and yeah, that was an awesome house. I love that house, man. And, that was something I purchased back when I had the show. I bought it. God, it was maybe like 10 years ago, and then kind of, not that I outgrew it, I undergrew it. Like my kids started getting older, they started moving out. Next thing you know, then we just didn't need a house that big anymore. And then I literally sold it like pretty much right after that music video, and like that time, I pretty much got rid.
Well, Tanked itself went from 2011 to 2018.
Of you for some reason. Hold on.
Oh, let's get dialed back in. We're talking to Brett. Are you there? Brett Raymer from the TV show Tanked. He's got his restaurant Stallone's. Tanked 2011 to 2018, 15 seasons, 153 episodes. I think this stat still stands true that somewhere in the world on some TV network, Tanked is playing right now. The show is constantly on. It's on in syndication. How did this whole thing start? How did this business, how did this whole thing start for you?
We had the business, real early on in the 90s. We started the business back in 97. Then in 2000, I think it was like 2007, early 2007, 2008, I was watching Orange County Choppers when reality TV was popular, and that was like the main show. It was the Kardashians, Orange County Choppers. And I came into work one day and I was like, man, you guys see that episode of Orange County Choppers? I go, those guys turned a motorcycle into a rocket ship. I go, we can do the exact same thing, but with aquariums and become famous. And then they looked at me and they like I had three heads, and they were like, dude, you've had some good ones, but that's probably the worst idea you've ever had. Who the hell is going to want to watch us on TV build aquariums? And I'm like, everybody. I go, first of all, very dysfunctional. I go, that's number one. People love that. I go, number two, we're not like yelling and screaming. We're more like married with children. So people are going to, latch on to that. I go, but the most important thing is that more people attend zoos and aquariums than all five major league sports combined.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. So that's a stat that most people don't know, right? But think about that, right? Think about all five major league sports: baseball, basketball, hockey, football. Think about how many fans they get, and more people go to zoos and aquariums. So I started thinking about that. In public aquariums, when they open, they never close, right? And people love to watch fish. So I was like, I'm telling you, people are going to really enjoy this. I had no idea what to do. So I went down to the UNLV Film School and just kind of knocked on the professor's door and just was like, hey, man, my family said I couldn't do this. This is what we do. I would really appreciate you giving me like a game plan on how to get this going. And he's like, I really like your tenacity, just kind of walking into the school. You're not a student here. He's like, man, that's pretty cool. He goes, I'll come down and check you out and give you a. So that's exactly what happened. He came down, saw what we did, gave me a path. And back then in 2007, emails were still around, but they weren't like huge, right? Faxing was still happening, believe it or not. You would send them faxes through your computer. So he was like, you know what? Send a fax a one pager to production companies and get on the phone and start calling them. So that's basically what I did. I sent out, a one sheeter, got on call with production companies, got a lot of no's. And then after like, a few hundred no's, I finally got one guy that said, hey, we'll come down to Vegas and check you out and, see what's going on. So he came down to Vegas and he was like a car show guy and he liked what he saw, told us it was going to cost us $5,000. I told him we had a little bit of a problem. He said, what's that? I said, I'm $49.99 short. He laughed and he goes, you're really funny. And I go, that's exactly why we're going to have a smash hit TV show. And he goes, all right, you know what? I'm going to do it. So he films the pilot. And then after a year, the pilot didn't work out. So he gave me back the footage as part of our contract. And I took the footage, put it away. Basically, one of my friends from New York moved to Vegas and asked me what I was up to. And like, just 2 years had gone by, right? It was like a year of phone calls and then a year of shopping the show. So 2007 turned into 2009. And it, just like how quick, the Nutella restaurants went, it went just like that.
Mm-hmm.
2 years went quick, but it was really depressing because I really believed that I had a hit TV show. And when you believe in something and people are telling you no, 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 it gets really depressing and it can really take a toll on you after a while. This is kind of funny, but I felt like I was working too much at it, right? I felt like, and my analogy to that is that, if you're a single person, male, female, and you're lonely and you go out and like look for that person, you're probably most likely not going to find it because you're going to jump into something because you're desperate for it. You're looking, you're loathing for it. So I wanted to do the complete opposite. I wanted to do the, when it's meant to be, it's meant to be kind of thing. And that's how I felt like relationships are, when you least expect it, right? You're at
Yeah.
the library, you're shopping, you're somewhere, and you really never expect to see that person. And then all of a sudden, bam, you're married, right? Because you found the right person. So I took the disc and I put it away and I figured the man upstairs would wait. My friend moves to Vegas and he's like, what have you been up to? And I'm like, man, it's funny you ask. Let me show you. I pop in the disc. He looks at the disc and he goes, bro, you got a hit TV show here. And I'm like, wow, finally one person. I go, is there anything we could do with this? He goes, you know what? Let me send it to one of my friends back east and see what he says with it. He sends his friend back east. We get a phone call and he goes, bro, you got a hit TV show. He goes, but the problem is you shot a pilot and not a sizzle reel. And he goes, a sizzle reel is 10 minutes or less, and a pilot is at least 30 minutes. He goes, here's what happens when they get a pilot. They watch the first 10 minutes like it's a sizzle reel, and all of your good stuff is at the end. He goes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to recut this video, make it into a sizzle reel, take all the good parts of this video, add music, make it exciting, and then we're going to resubmit it. So that's what my buddy did. He sent it to another production company. They re-edited it, put new music to it, cut it down to 10 minutes, sent it off to Animal Planet. Well, actually, they sent it to me first, and I was like, oh my God, it's like a completely different video, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're cheering, you're excited because you're like, oh my God, this is really it. I thought it was it before, and now that I see this, I'm like, oh, this is definitely, this is it. And then 2 weeks later, we submitted it, and then as years went by, we found out the story that actually went on. So they got it at Animal Planet, and like anything else, you got to be a little bit lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for an aquatic show at the same time that we were pitching a show. So they got our disc, and they basically called the head of production or the head of Animal Planet. One of the guys said, "Hey, you need to see this disc. This is amazing." And basically, they looked at it and they were like, get those guys on the phone, and that's kind of how it started. It took me from the time I had the idea in 2007 to the time we launched our first episode was August 2011.
Wow.
So if you think about in actuality, it took us 4 years from the time that I had the idea all the way until we actually aired our first episode.
I love that whole story. The fact when you told everyone, they laughed at you. And then you go right there to the UNLV Film School, and you had this dream of the show. You had this vision. Yeah, you put it on the back burner, but you never let it go away. You still have that passion to get the show on the air. And just think about it. A year into it or 2 years into it, you say, you know what? This is not going to work. Let's just focus on the business. Man, the whole story is It makes me so happy to hear that success story. Was the car guy, was that Bud Brussman you spoke to? Bud's awesome. Bud is the guy behind Overhauling. Bud's a fantastic dude. That's
That's that, or did you know that?
I think you told me that before. There was
Oh,
Bud
I did.
Brussman.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, it was Bud Brusman. Yeah, and yeah, he was a big car guy. And he did a good job filming the pilot, but he just couldn't stop this. He couldn't sell the show. At that point, he was just a car guy. And
yeah.
yeah, I, the best part of the whole deal, believe it or not, was me negotiating the footage back because he paid for it. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a big time guy. And I was like, Bud, are you going to sell it? And he goes, absolutely, I'm going to sell it. I go, then this contract means nothing. As soon as you sell it, I'm going to tear it up. And he never sold it. And he sent me the disc back.
He's an honest guy. You've been kind of like a consultant with me and advisor with me. I've got my car show that I do on YouTube, and I'm trying to grow that. And this is one thing when I launched my car show 3 years ago. You said you want to own your own footage. That is key. Whatever you're filming, you want to be the one that's in control of it because you can go anywhere with that footage when the time comes. So you shoot the first pilot. At what point did you know that you guys had a smash hit success?
So it's funny you say that. I'm going to tell a little story. It's a little bit of a work into the pilot, right? So the original pilot was supposed to be Chris Angel, and we did 90% of the filming, and the pilot was going to be great, right? We had Chris. So remember, the show wasn't based around celebrities originally. The show was based around your average Joe, but we were able to somehow get Chris Angel to shoot the pilot. Okay. And at that point, if he would have shot the pilot, we would have been able to launch that as the pilot. We would have started with celebrities. But what happened is we had a problem with Chris Angel. So during the filming, he was filming an episode of MTV Cribs. And we had installed the aquarium in his foyer area. And the fish were already in, everything was already ready to go. Well, the equipment and stuff was making a lot of noise, and they were trying to film MTV Cribs. And there was nothing that we could do about the noise. We couldn't shut it off because the fish wouldn't die. So, they wanted it off for like a long period of time. So bottom line is that he got pissed off and basically kicked everyone out of that. As part of his contract, he could just quit at any time. So we were 90% done, and because we couldn't shut the noise off, he kicked everyone out of the house.
And this was
the aquarium, said he wasn't going to film, never got a chance to film the finale, and basically we got screwed. So we had to take all of the footage that we shot and reconvene it to another person, which was not a celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
And we utilized that as one of the episodes for the pilot. So when we shot the original pilot, they came back to us with one of these. They were like, well, we got good news and we got bad news. What do you want to hear first? And we're like, I'm always like, let me get the bad news out of the way. So the bad news is we're not going to air the pilot. And I was like, okay, what's the good news? The good news is we're going to give you guys 5 more episodes, and we want to air all 6 of them together. We're just going to greenlight the series. So they never took the pilot and put it through the testing. They instantly greenlighted the series after they got back the first episode. And then they gave us 5 more. And then it took us another year plus to actually get those 6 episodes off the ground.
I feel like, because I love the show and I do enjoy the celebrity aspect, but my favorite part of the show is the everyday person build that you guys do. That's what I love. I love the everyday, just the average guy or the business owner hired you guys. The celebrity stuff is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but I love that. So I could imagine if you would have rolled in with Chris Angel, they were expecting celebrity, and that it would have been a different show. Would have been the show that we come to love.
The show really, 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 believe it or not, the ratings, the show really took off.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because look, as much as your aspect of it, that's what you love, right? And I could go and ask 5 different people, and they'll give you 5 different answers. They'll tell you, we love the celebrities. We love Brett and Wade's family. We love the fish facts. We love the crazy builds. We love redneck. They'll give you what they love and what this and that. But the rate, our highest rated episode was Shaq, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just once they started doing celebrities, they just realized that you can get more bang for your buck for a limited amount of funding right? You get somebody like Shaq for an hour on your episode, where what does it cost to get him for a 30-second commercial?
Yeah.
So if it costs $1 million to get him for a 30-second commercial, you're paying for a $60,000, $80,000 aquarium, and you have him for a full hour.
It's true. And all that footage to promote with Shaq after the fact.
Right. And then, I don't know, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you look at Puppy Bowl and you look at a lot of the celebrities that came on after Tank, Shaq was on there, Tracy Morgan was on, like all these different celebrities that, were on Tank originally did other things along the road with animals.
When did you know? What was the biggest change for you, lifestyle wise or just business wise? Because I remember the height of the popularity of your show, driving by the shop here in Las Vegas, because people would come in, it was still a working shop, and there'd be lines of people waiting to get in. How did your life change once the show took off?
Man, so it's funny you ask some of these questions because like it just brings back the memory. So Agnes and I used to stand in Agnes's office and I used to tell her about the show, like when I had the crazy idea in the beginning. And I'm like, everybody's laughing at me one day, Agnes, but you keep laughing and you're gonna see lines of people that are gonna line up outside this place to come see us. And she's like, shut up, dude. There's nobody's lines, no people are gonna line up out here to come and see us. And I'm like, okay, you'll see. And then we used to laugh about it because we would look out the window before the place opened and there would literally be lines of people out the door. But the most memorable thing that I remember, my kids will never forget. You know, my daughter in 2007. Right? So that's 17 years ago, right? Well, 2007, yeah. So it's 17 years ago, right? So my daughter is now 27. So
Whoa.
she was 7. So she was 10, right? And my son was like a year or two. I told those kids, I'm like, right after the first episode aired, I'm like, guys, after last night, our life, and remember, it aired in August 11th, right, of 2007, I believe it was. School starts here at the end of August, right? So that next week, school started. So we went clothes shopping with my kids right after that weekend. The show aired on Friday night. Saturday, we woke up August 12th and we went clothes shopping for school because school was the following week. I'll never forget this. We're at Chili's in Summerlin on Charleston, and we're walking through Chili's. I told my kids, I'm like, our life's gonna change. People are gonna recognize your dad wherever we go. You'll see. And they're like, no, Dad, shut up. No one's gonna recognize you. And as soon as we walked into Chili's, the first two people that saw us go, oh my God, Mom, this is the guy we were watching on Animal Planet last night. Are you kidding me? There he is. And my daughter couldn't believe it. She made the face. She's like, oh my God, Dad, I cannot believe that just happened. I cannot believe that we just walked out and the first person that we saw recognized you.
It's
And I'm like,
incredible.
that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. What's funny is in Vegas, I always say because we're landlocked, no one thinks about the ocean, right? So in Vegas, I get recognized. People know me. Put me in Florida, put me in somewhere where there's an ocean, and dude, I mean, it's absurd how many people recognize me where there's an ocean. Like, I go to Florida. It was funny. One day we're in Florida, and we start taking pictures. Small restaurant, maybe 50 people. I start taking pictures with a couple that asked me to take a picture. I was like, okay, sure. Next thing you know is someone else turns around, they recognize me. Someone else turns around. By the time I was done, I was literally taking pictures with the whole restaurant.
Well, the ratings. Is it still the highest rated reality show of all time? Because it had the
Of all time, but it's one of the top. It's one of the longest running shows of all time. It's one of the top rated shows on Animal
yeah.
Planet. Sure. I mean, 157, 156, 3, whatever it was. You don't really get to shoot that many that often. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it was a life changing show, man. I wouldn't change it for anything. All the experience, all the people that I met, all the things I got to do was really amazing.
But because we've talked about before, you and I, about you possibly bringing Tanked back because there's still a fan base for it. The show, and what's so great about the show is you can go back and watch the show, season 1 from 2011, whole different world back then. But the show, the way it was shot, it stands the test of time. It's not dated. It's so bizarre when you watch the show. It's nothing. Maybe there's a little reference here and there, it's a not the shows are not dated. You can watch them at any point, so they live on forever. But you also you
And that makes me feel old because I go to these conventions still, and I just got back from Dallas. I was at Aquashella. They have aquarium conventions now. Believe it or not, they never
uh
had before Tank. And the fish section of a convention used to be in the dog and cat section. They'd be like, "Where's the fish section?" And they'd be like, "Oh, it's in the back corner over there by the in the dog and cats, in the back." And now they have Aquashella, Reefa Palooza, I mean, they have all these big conventions, um, because I believe in my heart, Tank spawned the industry.
yeah
What we did changed the industry, forever. And like you said, it still airs. Amazon has a channel called Ultimate Build. It's on Amazon Live TV every day. Uh, on Ultimate Build, it's on Animal Planet. Every Friday they run marathon. So I mean, like you said, you can find it somewhere in this world on television, today. And that in itself, I went to these conventions, and really what made your point to it not being dated is number one, the fact, obviously they still air it. And, they air shows that are dated, but you can tell when you're watching them that they're dated.
hmm
But like I said, when you watch Tank, there's really no references. And I go to these conventions, and now the crazy thing is I see the dad, who's now the granddad. I see the son, who has his son, and the granddad is like, yeah, I used to watch it with my son. And now the son, whose son is 5 years old, the 5-year-old is like, he's going, remember this guy? He's on TV. This old grandpa used to watch with his dad. So it's becoming generational, right? Makes me feel old, but really, I watched the show, transcend the hobby and just go generational. And it's just great, man. It just really is. That was one thing. If I want to be Wade and I want to be known for, I want to be known because of what we did. We changed. These are the two guys that literally created the show and changed the way fish keeping is done.
well, it wasn't even just a TV show. It was still a working business, correct? So you're filming, a build for Shaq or wherever, and you're working on that. So it's a real office, and we saw on the show. So I could call and say, "Hey, I want to get a tank," and take you guys are taking my order. So how hard
And
was that?
the TV show was just a fraction of what we did.
Yeah, how was that at the height of everything, managing a TV show, one of the best TV shows in the country, at the same time trying to manage a business? How hard was that doing the two?
It was tough, man. You gotta have good staff, good employees. Um, managing a business from a distance is not easy, especially when you're traveling, 200 plus days a year. And then filming at the facility, everybody wants your attention. It was late nights, long days. You know, I would, if I had to do it again, I would do the whole thing. You learn from your mistakes. I would definitely do it different. I would definitely do it different. I would be more concerned with my employees who I hire, managers. Also one of the things that we missed out on is we missed out on the the YouTube, right? So back end, we should have had a videographer following us around where the cameras weren't. Yeah,
Yeah,
all the behind the scenes with all the celebrities, all the 150, the Betty White when we got to talk to her off camera, Neil Patrick Harris when we got to sit down and have coffee with them and talk to him off camera. Like all of that stuff, I cost myself millions of dollars by not doing that because I would have once the show ended, if I would have started a YouTube channel with all the behind the scenes stuff and I would have had all the droves of footage, we would have made so much money after the fact, you know. And I give a lot of credit to YouTubers these days because, coming from a TV show where everything's done for you, and everybody's like, why don't you just move the show to YouTube? Well, you got to have editors, you got to have filmers, you got to have, you got to have a sense of organization yourself. And not
hmm
only that, you're not going to make money right away. So you got to fund it, put it out there, with the hope of making money. It wasn't something I was ready. I wasn't something I was ready for. But if I had the footage already shot, I would have been able to just pay someone to edit it, drop it onto YouTube, and people would have learned to more behind the scenes footage. Because there was so much good stuff that the television series didn't.
Would you ever, if you did bring it back, would you do it just, I don't want to say like on a sound stage, but just have Tanked be have that working shop, but the shop is just working on the show itself and not be taking in 10 to 12 different orders a week.
Yeah, we would build a studio. That's what it would be. The way to make the show successful again. And so, television as much as anyone. It's hard to sell TV right now to anyone, right? I have another. You would think, JC, right? After shooting 156 episodes, I gave one of the top shows on Animal Planet. I wrote another show, okay? And in my opinion, anyone I show it to in the industry goes, dude, that's amazing, okay? I've been working on selling it for a year and a half. People look at it, they go, yeah, we love it, it's great, but we're just not spending money right now. I thought it was going to be so easy to get a second one, right? That I was going to be like, yeah, like I got the second show. I got Shaq committed to being a judge on the show. Video of him saying, pick up Brett's show, I'll be a judge. I got different other celebrities that would come on. I got big YouTubers involved in the show that would use their platform to promote the show. Like I try to do all the things that I missed out on with Tanked. I tried to encompass into getting this show aired, and I'm still having a rough time. Doesn't mean I'm quitting.
No.
But it still means, it took me 3+ for the last one, so a year and a half. We still got plenty of road time, So I still have faith that there's going to be another show. I just don't know when.
Looking back on it, what was the most disastrous build, or was there a build that you guys did? The tank was done, and then just when it came to installation, things were just not working out and going sideways. Was there one of those builds that stands out in your mind?
Look, people have to understand that this was a real business.
Mhm.
This not we weren't faking it for television. I wouldn't make my business look bad just for the sake of impressing the, because in the overall long run, customers gonna look at that and go, "Are those guys really that stupid? Are
Mhm.
they that dumb? Are they gonna really let that happen?" So I really tried to stay away from them letting them ever film anything that wasn't organic, right? Now, being that said, you had a lot of problems in that business because of you're around water, plumbing and water, right? There's always problems. Shipping things to another state, right? Where you have things in shipping where things can break,
Yeah.
things that are out of your control. So that happened on a regular basis, But one of the ones I specifically remember that wasn't planned for was the Christmas tank. It was a Christmas episode, and we had this big cylinder that we shipped across country to Atlanta, and the bottom of the tank separated.
Gosh.
And that wasn't part of the plan, but they filmed it as part of the episode because it really happened. So, that's kind of like what would go on a lot. Like a lot of the times there would always be these headaches and then they would film them. And, you know, unexpected headaches where you'd be like, man, oh, we're delayed another day because, this is cracked or that's cracked or, something's wrong with this. But most of the headaches or the problems originated because that's just how it was with that business. You didn't have to make anything up. It was just when you're building in construction and you're building, there's always going to be it.
But none of that stuff was ever, it was never, hey, in this episode we're filming, the tank we're shipping, let's crack the glass out there. Everything we
No,
saw, it
no,
was
no. We never
real.
did that. No, purposely. Now look, I can tell you some of the pranks, like some of the things that we did, pranking people. The way that worked was, no, everybody knew what was going on
Mhm.
except for the person being pranked.
Okay.
One time we were breaking the pinball glass for the pinball machine. I was supposed to break the glass and drop it, but nobody knew the glass was tempered.
Okay.
So what happened was I dropped the glass the first time, and Wayne was supposed to be like, "Oh my god!" and it didn't break. And everybody looked, and we were all like, "All right, gigs up." It didn't break. So if you're watching the episode, you actually see me kind of throw it, like
Yeah.
push it, and I push the glass down to make it break. But those are the little things that we did to make the show. But we wanted everything to be as natural as possible. We really did. I thought it was just better that way.
I was talking to someone who had a tank built by you. Yeah, it was a business here in town, and they said they spent $30,000 on the tank. It was a big tank, but the maintenance about $1,200 a month to maintain a tank. Does that sound about right? If you have exotic fish, the heating and everything else, is that how much it can cost to maintain a fish tank?
It depends on the size of the aquarium. I mean, there are some people that have five, they average about $1 per gallon per month. So if you for salt water. So if you got a 500-gallon aquarium, you should expect to pay about $500 a month for maintenance, not including your supplies, your salt, that's just the labor alone. A guy coming out twice a month, gravel vacuuming, water changes, checking the health of the fish, medicating if necessary. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's two ways to do it. You're either a hobbyist or you're not a hobbyist,
Hmm.
right? Hobbyists are gonna spend the money and take care of the aquariums themselves because they love it, they enjoy it. Then you're gonna get people that have, spend $50,000 on an aquarium. If you can spend 50 on an aquarium, you should be able to afford the maintenance.
It's a good point.
So,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, it's another business. Maintenance is just like a pool maintenance guy. Guy comes out, cleans your pool. Guy comes out and cleans your fish tank. Except there's live fish in it, and they got to know a little bit more about water chemistry, a little bit more about disease. So you're paying a little bit extra to have a professional come out and maintain a luxury item.
So when did we have the podcast? That was what, 3 years ago? The podcast we did?
I think about 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, it was a great podcast. It was a podcast on Tanked, and it was with Brett and Agnes, and I got to host the podcast. And I think there was like 15 episodes. They're still out there. You can find them out there. But it's really neat because every week I would pick a certain episode and we'd do a deep dive on that episode. And you would break stuff down about what went into the builds, and we had some of your celebrity builds join us. Manny Ramirez, I think, was on an episode. We talked to some of the celebrities that you built tanks for. I know you and Agnes are still very close. I could see that when you guys were doing that show together. Do you still talk to Wade?
To Wade much anymore. We kind of went our own separate ways in life. It's disappointing to me. Wade always has a special place in my heart. My brother-in-law, friend. Wade was there for me when nobody was there for me. So I never forget that. JC, the one thing I've learned about life, brother, is everything comes in cycles. Your life is a cycle. You're gonna have good cycles and you're gonna have bad cycles. And the same thing with friends and friendships and relationships. You're gonna have your cycles with your ex-girlfriends and your girlfriends and your kids. You're gonna have cycles with. And just look at this as another cycle with Wade. Cycle where obviously we're not talking, but hopefully there'll be another cycle in the future where we'll be able to talk again. I didn't talk to my sister for 4 years, and we talk now. She thinks good. I didn't talk to my dad for a while, and I talk to him now, and our family's going through a good cycle right now. My sister works with me at the restaurant.
She does. That's awesome.
Comes to the restaurant, eats free food all the time.
Of course he does. The general.
Yeah, it's just good, man. It's just good. Everything works in cycles, and I'm really happy that things are going in that direction.
Well, I remember when we were doing the.
I'm trying to get you back on. I think I lost you. My speaker's in and out.
You got me there?
Yeah,
okay, cool. When we were doing I remember when we were doing the podcast just a few years ago, things were not good with your father, which is like you said, everything you go through a cycle. But I remember when you had the restaurant, I was watching a video you posted on social media, and you're panning the restaurant, and your dad was there eating in the restaurant. I think I sent you a message like, I see your dad in the restaurant. You're like, yeah, things have turned the corner. We're talking again. It made me so happy just to see him in the background of a video. I'm like, yeah, they're back on. That's good to see that.
Yeah, so my dad's 80. He just turned 80 in November, and he's doing really well. And he's my number one customer at the restaurant. Comes up there, every day. And it's great, though. You know what? It's good to see him. It's good that he goes up there. You know what? Like I said, man, you never really think that as you get older, you never really, like when you're a young kid, you don't know the reality of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't think about your parents ever not being in your life. You don't think about that stuff. And then as you get older, you start everybody's time comes, and the bottom line is I appreciate things a lot more, now that I'm older. Time with my kids, time with my dad, time with my mom. I'm blessed to have both. I'm 55 and I'm blessed to have both parents still alive.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, my mom's 78, my dad's 80. My mom comes out here every year. Last 3 years in a row, I've gotten a picture with my mom and dad together. It's the first, I haven't had pictures with my mom and dad maybe since I'm 2 years old. You know, they never liked each other my whole time. Being growing up, they
Mhm.
hated. And then as adults, obviously, they don't have any reason to hate each other anymore. I get to hang out with my parents when they come to Vegas, so that's a really amazing thing for me. I get to go to dinner with both of them. I get to see both of them, and enjoy the time with them. And then with my kids too, man. Like I said, the TV show, it took me away from my kids for 10 years.
Mhm.
200. It's hard to say some of the stuff. It upsets you in a way because I'm a really good parent. My son suffered in a way because I wasn't there, and I was a great athlete growing up as a kid. And, I started my son in sports, just the way I was, and my dad was always there for me. But I had to make a choice, was a TV show or be a stay-at-home dad. Obviously my son, mom wasn't around, so it was, what am I going to do? And I chose the TV show. I thought it was going to be a better life for my kids.
Yeah.
And my son didn't want to go to football anymore, didn't want to do karate anymore, didn't want to do those things anymore because I wasn't there watching him. I wasn't there participating. I was his coach, right? I was coach of his football team. We won the championship. The next year I'm gone. He doesn't want to play for another coach.
Yeah.
So that part of it really tore my heart out. But the flip side of that is I bought him his first computer when he was 10,
Mhm.
right? And he started taking apart computers, started working on computers. Now the kid's a computer genius. He's getting ready to go to cybersecurity school.
Is he
He's going to
really?
be, yeah, so he's going to be a cybersecurity, expert. He's an amazing computer. I mean, literally, this computer we're on right now, he built for me during the pandemic. I spent like 3, 4 grand. Haven't had a problem, a headache. It's amazing. I mean, he builds computers. Yes, on one hand, I steered him in another direction, but on the other hand, he wasn't able to go in the direction that he enjoyed as well. So,
Mhm.
you know, it's 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 kind of like a conundrum, JC. You know what I mean? You do good on one hand, and then on the other hand, I felt like I deprived him of the athlete, being an
Yeah.
athlete. Um, but you know, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I had to make that choice, and it's something I got to live with. And I'm close with both of my kids, and I think I made the right decisions with both of them. At this point, it's up to them to make their decisions. I think they're over it.
Well, yeah, I met your kids. They're well rounded. I see they have love for their father when they're around dad, and so we can see the love that you have for them, and it's great to see back you with your father and your sister. And this makes me so happy, man. I really appreciate you. Our time has come to an end, by the way, but I appreciate you so coming on the show. And you and I've done many things together, and it's nice to sit down with you again and go long form and talk about such an iconic show, and to hear you have other projects when it comes to TV in the works and the successful restaurant. Brett, I'm so happy for you, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, man. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you and talking to you. I really appreciate all your support over the years. It's been great. Channel 8 as well. You guys have been great to me with the restaurant, with Tank. Absolutely, yeah. Thank all the staff back there. You guys are all great. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Awesome, buddy. All right, well, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Brett. Thank you,
You
everyone, for
got it,
watching.
guys. All
See
right,
you
man.
now.